Hey everybody, I'm Matt McArthur and I'm running for Congress in the Texas 13th District. Now, for those of y'all who are checking out my channel to see where I stand on issues, let me address something out of the way right from the start. The reason I'm not wearing a cowboy hat is because we're block walking today and it's windy and it kept blowing off. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today was why I want to make child support tax deductible. Now, I've had a few people thinking that means I want to do away with it or something. That's not the case. Just so you all know, my parents divorced when I was very young. My mother was awarded child support. She raised me for most of my life. And there were a lot of times my dad could pay, and there were a lot of times my dad could not. And trust me, we noticed the difference on those months. So I want to put everybody's mind at ease right from the start. I do not want to do away with child support. I think as a non-custodial parent, especially as a man, it's your obligation to take care of your kids. And to be honest, I don't know many men who disagree. My thought process is this. If a couple is married and raising children, there are tax credits, any number of them. There are tax deductions for their kids. There are things you can deduct, like child care, medical, things like that. And most families that have those deductions, come tax time, they notice the difference a lot and get some fairly large checks. It's life-altering in many ways for these families. Now, in the case of divorced families, one parent, the primary custodian, and I apologize about the wind. We're outside, we're out and about, so it's windy. But if you're from the Panhandle or West Texas, you're used to it. Anyway, when parents are either not married or divorced, the custodial parent, the primary custodian, will get child credits. They'll get to deduct things like daycare, medical. They'll get the tax deduction for the children or children, which can be quite lucrative. And the non-custodial parent, however, pays all of those expenses, anything they pay, child support, medical insurance, any of that, they actually pay post-tax. So the way it works is if a guy makes $100,000 a year and pays $20,000 in child support, that $20,000 for child support comes out before his taxes do. And then his taxes come out. So when you're telling a guy that he's paying, say, 25% of his income, gross income, for child support, what you're really saying is, because he's paying taxes on that money as well, his check's going to be short anywhere from 35 to 40%. So if you add in other expenses that non-custodial parents often chip in for, medical, things like that, daycare in many states, not just here, because I want to do this nationwide, but daycare is an example, they don't get the tax deduction for that. Only one parent can, only one parent can claim it, even though you might have both parents chipping in equally. And I think that's somewhat unfair. I know a lot of Republicans talk about family values, and I absolutely agree. The family model is very important. But it doesn't mean we should forget about the families, not as we want them, but as they are. Now, my policy would simply add an amendment onto the next tax bill that passed, the next budget and tax law when they come out, that simply says that any parent who pays child support can deduct that money. If they pay other expenses like daycare or medical, they can deduct that as well. This isn't giving anybody a free ride. It's merely giving a non-custodial parent a credit that I think most of us would agree they deserve. Now, on the other hand here, this can actually be beneficial to the custodial parent. I've worked in the construction industry, which can sometimes be seasonal. You'll have guys that work 8-10 months and they're off 2 or 3 or something along those lines. And you tend to find that sometimes they're paying all their child support when they're working, but if they're out of a job or between jobs, it can sometimes fall behind simply because they don't have the money. Unemployment isn't there. Well, when that happens, the state will have the IRS pull whatever they're in arrears out of their tax return and have that pay to the custodial parent to get them caught up, which is a good way of doing it. Well, from a practical standpoint, the larger the tax return, the quicker they're caught up. Also, it means that some of these people who are paying child support that are on paper above the poverty line, but once they pay child support are slipping below, people in your $30,000 to $42,000 a year bracket probably count for this if you figure I think it's 2 kids is the average now. This allows them to be lifted back up above the poverty line. So when some of those additional expenses that courts can't necessarily regulate kick in, school supplies, some school clothes, maybe travel expenses for a visitation exchange, it allows the non-custodial parent to be on a little bit more of a playing field. And that's my goal. I think that the tax code should first and foremost be fair, and that's to all people. And one of the discrepancies that I've seen over the years is when it comes to child support. One parent gets everything, which can be a lot of money, and to be fair, raising kids are expensive, so we don't want to take that away. But a non-custodial parent who is doing everything in their power to do their fair share and to make sure that they're financially keeping up with their obligations can also get some of the credits. I think that'll go a long way to keeping both parents intact, which is what we want. Now, we never want a divorce situation. We never want a child to grow up without both parents in the homes. But if you look at the statistics in the United States, it's happening, and probably too much, but it is happening. Unfortunately, our politicians have done next to nothing to address that. And if you ladies and gentlemen will elect me to Congress, that is going to be something that I'll address quickly. Anyway, if you agree or disagree, feel free to comment, or feel free to get in touch with me at Matt McArthur for Congress on Facebook, or McArthurforCongress@yahoo.com. You can feel free to email me as well. Anyway, I appreciate you listening, and I hope this answered some of your questions and made you feel a little better about my policy standpoint. Thank you very much.